That was just a little introduction. Basically, the song was a big concert that they held in Africa, and they tried to do that every couple of years. It's part of something called the Rollback Malaria Scheme. So they usually have a big concert in Africa, okay, just to try and raise as much funds. But what we're going to look at today is the war on malaria, most particularly this. Okay? That thing is the one that we need to be a little bit concerned about. So what we're going to look at today, look at the incidence distribution of the disease, understand how the causal agent affects the growth and spread of the disease, signs and symptoms. And then look at how we can prevent it from healthcare of the body. That is possibly the most wanted killer on our planet. This thing, or rather the species, which is the mosquito, is responsible for over 1 million deaths every single year. Not all of them from malaria. We've got very... I find them fascinating, but then again I'm weird. I love... Yeah, you nod, yeah. I love viruses. I love pathogens, okay? It's what my passion is about, okay? West Nile virus is fantastic, okay? And how these tiny little things that's so microscopic that it infects cells can cause destruction of a large host such as us. Dengue fever. Dengue, the song going back into the 60s about dengue woman, right? But dengue fever. If you don't get the treatment, these can be unpleasant, really unpleasant, and can cause death. Yellow fever, you've probably all heard of yellow fever, right? Especially if you're going over towards China and parts of India, there's a good chance of looking at getting yellow fever. Encephalitis. Do you know what encephalitis is? Have you heard of BSE? Not heard of BSE? Mad cow disease. Oh yeah, we've heard of that. Mad cow disease, BSE, is bovine spongiform encephalopathy. Basically, it's a problem with your brain and swelling of the brain. Right, so various encephalitis you can get. And lymphatic filariasis, the lymphatic system. Okay, those of you that do biology will be familiar with the lymphatic system. Now, you can get filariasis with that. Again, it's a pathogen that infects it. Malaria, right, is obviously the one that we're going to focus on today, right? The incidence of malaria, where do we get it? Right. That is not a misprint. $200 to 300 million cases of malaria each year. And the last figures from the WHO, in 2010, they think there was 219 million cases with an uncertainty range of 154 to 289 million. So it's a serious thing. Right? Kills over 1 million people. We're guessing at that. Latest figures show it's 2010, because those are the latest figures that the WHO produced, was 660,000 deaths. Uncertainty between 400 and 900,000. It could be more, it could be less. The problem is we don't know about the villages. And it's spread by that, okay, which is an Anopheles mosquito. And there's about 70 types. So don't start panicking and thinking, oh, I've seen a mosquito. You will see mosquitoes here. But they're not the ones that carry the disease that's going to cause malaria yet. It will happen. Why? What is happening to our planet? Sorry?
Warming.
Global warming. These like warm weather, so we're getting a bit warmer. and it's moving in. We're not that far away from Africa. Think about the sand that gets blown around. You're finding sand that's blown from the Sahara Desert landing in the centre of Birmingham. So if we can get sand from there, it's not going to be long before we can possibly get these coming into our country. Malaria is not caused by the mosquito. The mosquito is what's called a vector. It carries them, right? And the thing that actually causes it is that beautiful thing. Okay? It's absolutely gorgeous, is that? Right? That is a plasmodium parasite. Absolutely tiny. And there's 4 types of plasmodium that can cause malaria. It's attractive, don't you think? You're not as passionate about this, you're not weird enough now. Okay? Not weird enough. So, right. So there we've got one of them, okay? That's had a good feed. How do we know? Right. See a bit of a full belly there. Right. That's not had a feed yet, but it will do. You can just see the proboscis there start to have a go. That's definitely had a good feed. Right. This is why if you ever squash a mosquito and it goes red, it's not the mosquito blood, it's animal blood that's inside it. So when you squash it and it goes red, it's had a feed. The other thing is that it's only the females that bite. It's only female mosquitoes that have a go for you, right? The males go for nectar. Right? The females want blood. Why would they want blood? Why does it female mosquitoes want to prey and get blood?
Nutrient.
Which nutrient in particular? Give you a bit of a clue. It begins with a P. Proteins. Okay. It's after proteins. Because mummy is going to make babies. So she needs to do that for growth. Males don't. So they just go and get their nectar. Right? And where do we find malaria? Well, it's basically everywhere that we can see that's red. Right? So you can see all of that. Okay, in terms of Africa, looking at India, the northern part of South America. There's more than 2 billion people at risk of catching malaria. That's 40% of the world's population, give or take. Most of the people who die from malaria are children. We've been listening to this for 8 minutes. Therefore, in 8 minutes, 8 children have died from malaria. It's approximately 1 child every 60 seconds dies due to malaria. And that's even in the current day and age where we're at, okay, despite our advances. You're looking at in the region of just over 500,000 that can die from this. It's ridiculous. And what's more annoying is we can do something to help prevent it. Africa is the one where the brunt who get this. Okay, they're the ones who get the majority of it. And in terms of anybody here study economics, business studies? Yeah, it's cost Africa somewhere in the region of $12 billion a year. In terms of looking after, okay, trying to give treatment. $12 billion. That's quite a lot. Right? So, where will we find it? We find the mosquito, because that's what we're looking at low altitudes. We find them particularly during the hot seasons. And more importantly, where it can breed in fresh water. And where the environment provides water, vegetation and suitable temperature. We're in a a catch-22 situation. And 60% of all the malaria cases are within the poorest 20% of the world's population. So we are trying to help the poor. So those of you who do geography, geographers, yes, you know about irrigation systems. Yeah, have you come across irrigation to help turn areas into growing food? Fantastic. Unfortunately, it creates standing water. So do you feed these people that's poor and help the mosquito, where there's a chance of catching malaria, or do you not feed them, don't put the water, therefore there's no chance of malaria, there's a chance of dying due to starvation. It's a catch-22. And the thing about the mosquito, what makes it so brilliant, in terms of its evolution, a hoof print. In mud, hoof print, rain comes along, you get a hoof print filled with rainwater. That hoof print is deep enough and with enough water that you can get several hundred mosquitoes breeding in it. Just a single hoof print from a cat. So that's why it's evolutionary, it's so fantastic how it's managed to evolve. You've all been abroad and you've seen the water tanks on the ceilings of, like, you go on holiday, if you go to Spain or Greece, etc., and you see the water tanks on the top. They use those usually for heating up the water, and then you can actually, those are fantastic for breeding mosquitoes. All you need is a crack in the lid, because it's nice and warm, the water's there, not going to be disturbed. And these are the problems. We are trying to advance and give people in these poorer regions things like water, basic toilet facilities, a cistern. No cistern that's full of the water used to flush. That's another brilliant place for mosquitoes to survive. So what do we do? It's an awful situation. So, mainly among risks are due to children because they've got immunity. Highest deaths among children to 5. Pregnant women. This is one that we see more. Older people susceptible when they move from one area and return outside of 6 months. So we're finding that, for example, the elderly who have come into the UK, lived here for a couple of years and go, I want to go back and visit the family. So they go back. They're at a high chance of them catching malaria because they've been away from it. And that's the problem because of their immunity. And do we get malaria in the UK? Yes. Is it caught in this country? No. It's people who go visiting friends and relatives, and we get about 20 people who die from malaria in this country every year. And we've got about 2,000 cases. It's quite a lot. None of them have been caught in this country, as far as we're aware. Now, in order for transmission to spread it, right, we need quite a few factors. We need this. We need the mozzie, which is the vector. We need a host, that's you. And we need the parasite, plasmodium, and a suitable environment. So we need some warmth and some water. So, it's a transmissible disease, and the parasite's a pathogen, and it depends on you as the host for its nutrition and shelter. So, what happens in terms of malaria? Here we go. So, there we go. We've had a long scuffle of mosquitoes. We've landed on you. Right, we've got a nice little blow up there with your skin. Yeah, you can see the actual mosquito. So the mosquito bites and it spreads something called sporozoites in with its saliva. So it's basically just a big drinking straw, comes along, right? It's got an anticoagulant so you don't clot. So what it then does, comes along, has a drink of your blood. In the meantime, these blue things called sporozoites are lying inside the mosquito and they then enter into your bloodstream. So, within half an hour of being bit by a mosquito, these sporozoites are going into your liver. So they're there for about 5 to 7 days, and they form something called a merozoite. So they enter your liver and they start to divide. Right? These then burst out of your liver, and they then infect your red blood cells. This is why. Are you familiar with sickle cell anemia? Sickle cell anemia is a horrible condition. However, it does give resistance to malaria. Because their blood cells, their red cells, are an odd shape. My merozoites can't infect it. So you get less incidence of malaria with. Yet those who have sickle cell suffer awful other conditions, right, and have great difficulty. But it does give them the resistance from the malaria. So, it goes inside your red blood cell, it multiplies, and it takes about 2 days. This is when you're starting to feel tired. These burst, release more merozoites, that infects new cells. The cycle goes on and on and on. Some of the merozoites develop into something called a gametocyte. You're familiar with the word gamete? Sex cells, right? Which is the sexual stage of the parasite. What then happens, you get bitten by another mosquito. That sucks up the blood, and in turn, the gametocytes go back into the mosquito. Inside the mosquito, male and female fuse, forms a zygote. You should be familiar with these terms, zygote, fusing. That then forms something called a motile eukaryote. What does motile mean? It'll move, and it does. So what it then does, it burrows through the mosquito's stomach wall, quite sensible, forms this thing called an oocyst, which will then turn into the sporozoites. We came across the sporozoites earlier. The sporozoites then go into the salivary gland, and the cycle repeated. So when you think about the parasite, the plasmodium, it goes into the gut, migrates, right, once it's fused, goes into the salivary gland, turns into these sporozoites, gets infected again, into your host, goes to your liver cells, divides, then bursts out of your liver, goes on to infect your red cells. Some of your red cells get developed into these gametocytes. Mosquito comes along, bites you, comes up. The whole cycle keeps going. So how do we know if we've got malaria? There's a couple of several types of malaria. And we have something called uncomplicated, which is Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium ovale, and Plasmodium malaria. So what do we get? This is uncomplicated. This is quite, you can cope with this. Chills and sweats. You can cope with that. Headache. That's tolerable. Malaise. Just generally feeling unwell. Fever. Okay. So your temperature goes up and down. We probably all experience these. Dehydration. We all experience a little bit of that. Vomiting. Diarrhea. Anemia. What's anemia? What happens with anemia? Not enough iron, so it causes a problem with your blood. Why are you getting that with malaria? Because your blood cells are getting burst out, they're getting destroyed. And consequently, jaundice. You know what jaundice is? You go yellow. Do you know what's the sign of? And also liver damage. You know, we said it's infected. Right? So this is quite mild, compared to how it can be. Right? So chills and sweats, headache, malaise, fever, up and down, dehydration, vomiting, diarrhea, anemia, and jaundice. That's considered the best malaria to catch. But I wouldn't particularly like to have all of those conditions in the same week. Right. Severe malaria, falciparum. You're in trouble if you get this. You get all of that, you are classified as a medical emergency. It's likely you will slip into a coma. Your lungs will fail, and severe anemia. Your blood count goes right down. That is, obviously you don't want those. We can prevent it. Avoid malaria, but do something about it quickly if you get it. I am not going to say to you, avoid malaria, don't catch it by don't go into Africa, India, South America. How many of you are planning a gap year or want to do some travelling? Either before you start uni or after you finish uni. Yeah, whether that's a set of interrailing or whatever. Yeah, I would recommend it. It's the one thing I didn't do and I wish I did. Fantastic chance to see the world. You need to be careful about malaria. Take care and you'll be fine. Avoiding risk. I'm not saying don't go. Cover up. They can bite through thin cotton. It will go through. You probably all had this. A DEET-based repellent. Are you familiar with DEET? It stinks. Right? You ever had your fly spray that you put on, your insect repellent? Right? And if you ever get a cut and you put it near any type of cut, or guys, if you've ever had a shave and then tried putting DEET on, alright, because you're going, oh, I'm going out, alright, as you get older, alright, you're going off on your holiday, Club 1830, I've been there, done that, many a tour, right? I recommend it, good fun, right? But you go for your night out, have a shave, start to look good, always night before you put some insect repellent on, and then you're crying for about 10 minutes. Right? And guys, you ever put aftershave on straight after you've had a shave? You ever done that? Smarts of it. Imagine something 20 times worse. Right? You feel as though somebody's shoving hot needles in your face. It's really unpleasant. Right? DEET, okay? But use it. Knockdown sprays. What's a knockdown spray? You've all got them at home, haven't you? Who's got the fly spray? Huh? Get the fly spray. It's the one where you go, you've got a fly that's annoying you at home. And you go and get the fly spray. The fly always avoids, you know, in the meantime, the person spraying it has got all over the room, and somebody walks in, straight into the fly spray. Have you done that? It's brilliant. And you just go, who's spraying? Or you get the other ones, who get the fly swats and think you're in with a chance of hitting a fly. You're in with a chance of hitting a mosquito with a fly swat. I tell you what, I'd be quite impressed if you could. And the best. Screens. Anybody slept on one of these? Yeah? They're not unpleasant. If you go up backpacking, get your own. They're only probably about £5–6 you can get one for. Get one, goes into a rucksack. It will save you an awful lot. Air conditioning. Nets. Avoid the source. If you're going to go backpacking, don't decide that you're going to camp out slap bang next to the river, next to the stream, right, next to the lake, in an area where there's a chance of malaria. Because you're going to get bitten, right? And take your medication, right? Chemoprophylaxis. If you're looking with malaria, what you want is an A, B, C, D, E. Aware of the risk. Find out where you're going. Is there a risk? Avoid the mosquito bites. Cover up. Take your chemoprophylaxis, your medication. Take your tablet. Anybody here have to take antimalarials?
My brother had to.
Yeah? You've just got to keep taking them. They work. Not 100% effective. If you're ever in an area where there is malaria, and you come up with the symptoms, you're feeling tired, you're feeling lethargic, you're feeling, you're being sick, you've got diarrhea, get yourself checked out to the doctor. And this, if you're more than 24 hours, so if any of you are going to go off and do any work within villages, right, perhaps we're going to do some community work within parts of Africa, which quite a few people in Gaffers do, make sure you've got an emergency standby treatment. It will save your life 24 hours. Is all it would need. And malaria doesn't care who you are. Easy to caught malaria. So she was stupid. I'm sorry, okay? What was brilliant about this is it highlighted people's belief that I'm okay. I'm only going to Africa for 2 days. She was going there for the part of the, I think it was one of the Red Nose Day, I think it's where they were looking for us. I'm only going for 2 days. I'll be like, oh, I don't need to take tablets, I'm fine. Don't matter if you're just going to go for, a couple of hours in terms of, make sure you're going to have some antimalarials. It only takes one bite. She got bitten, came back, caught malaria. Won't separate, no matter who you are. Who's that? Bronco. He's had malaria. He had it twice. Growing up as a kid. Michael Essien. He's had it, I think, if not twice, it's 3 times. First time at the age of 4, then at 7. So you can survive. You want to know that? Blood's razor. She's caught malaria. Right? She had it, knocked her, really made her quite ill. Went and took her. David Attenborough. He's had malaria. JFK. He caught malaria. He caught malaria when he was going to Vietnam. Okay? Because he was very, very confident. So malaria doesn't distinguish. It doesn't matter who you are. It will go and get. Some myths about malaria. Show up, huh? I never get bitten and barely react to mosquito bites, so I don't need to take any precautions. Everyone's body reacts differently, but it's no indication of whether you've been bitten by a malaria-carrying mosquito. You only need one bite to get malaria. I'm going to a malarious destination, but I'm going in their dry season, so it'll be fine. They do have wet and dry seasons, and the wet season activity's increased. Mosquitoes are still active in the dry season. Septic tanks, irrigation channels. The dry season is when they need that water, right, to go to the crops. Mosquitoes are quite happy. Antimalarials are not 100% effective, therefore there's no point taking them. They're about 90 to 98% effective. If you use a good bite prevention, your nets, etc., you've got a better chance of stopping it. All antimalarials have bad side effects that are worse than catching malaria. I will take the side effects from an antimalarial tablet every day over the chance of a coma. Right? Respiratory distress or death. I will prefer to have the side effects of maybe having trouble sleeping, having a bit of a loss of appetite, feeling a little bit nauseous once you've taken your tablet. Different types of different side effects. If you're taking, a lot of the time you take antimalarials before you go. If you start to have a bad reaction before you go, then you go to your doctor and say it's anything else, or you could try this brand. Because they've got different things within them. There's different types, and when I show you the little video clip, now you can see about the different types, but you've got to see which one works best. I'm taking homeopathy, this one's coming up more and more common. I'm taking homeopathic medicines to protect, so I don't need to do anything else. No evidence that homeopathic or herbal will protect you from malaria. Seek advice and bite avoidance. By all means take it, but take it in conjunction with other things. Show a cold. Only takes one bite. Even if you're in for a short period, you need to take different types of going through. My friend went to the same place and said you don't need to take precautions there. You're going to listen to your mate instead of a government directive. That's sensible. Listen to your mates. Follow the advice. Not worth gambling on your life with the advice of friends or other unqualified. Now we come on to my favourites. Garlic and vitamin B will protect you against malaria. Might have some effect, but it's not going to really protect you. Okay? Some people believe that. I am not joking. Eating Marmite or yeast extract will help protect me because it's got the yeast in it. How many of you here like Marmite? You might be able to not catch malaria if you completely covered your body in Marmite, right? But then again, the flies and nobody else will want to go anywhere near you, right? But I can't imagine you want to smear Marmite. I'm going to stay in a 5-star hotel. Unfortunately, the Mosquitoes don't know about the star class of hotel. Right? I can't go, that's a 5-star hotel, I can't go and buy those. Right? I'm going to go for the students on a gap year. You're in a half-a-star hotel. It doesn't matter whether you're in a 5-star, 1-star, no star, you're in a tent. It will just come and have a bite. Right? It doesn't discriminate. Going back 700 years, this is what we used to think. Gin and tonic will not stop you getting bitten or contracting malaria. Huh? What we used to do with this, tonic water used to contain something called quinine. Quinine is an antimalarial. We no longer have quinine in tonic water. So when you go back to the era of the Raj, Britain going over to India, what they'd have is they'd have their quinine in the form of a gin and tonic. And they'd have it with gin because the quinine in the tonic water was quite unpleasant to taste. So you give gin with it. Right? And that was really good, effective. But because quinine's got some unpleasant side effects, they now had to take quinine out of tonic water. Or rather, in some cases, reduce the amount that's in there. So you can't just go, I'll have a gin and tonic, please. If you want to have a drink gin and tonic, you can have a gin and tonic. But it's not going to give you protection from malaria. Alright? This is the latest comments about malaria, and the fact that the malaria parasite is seeming to control, it's doing mind control, as it were, of the mosquito. And it's directing it to where there is the human odour. And it might sound madness, but it actually makes perfect sense. That the parasite can control the mosquito. What you'll find is that a lot of mosquitoes that bite you with malaria are far more active in the daytime. When do you think mosquito would normally be most active? Normal mosquitoes, when would they be most active? What do you think? Night time or
Dusk.
Yeah, dusk, early morning. Is there many people around at dusk and early morning? Not really. And there's been some research going on where they're finding that malarial infected mosquitoes are becoming more active during the daytime when there's more people about, which sort of makes sense. You know? It's a weird one. The other one that's frightening is about scaly feet. Right. Mosquitoes count 3 times more likely to be attracted to smelly socks. Okay? Because the tiny parasites are manipulating their host's sense of smell. The things giving them a heightened sense, hypothesis, and alteration that allows them to find us quicker. Okay? So it makes sense. I can see it being more effective at trying to bite into the boys, because the boys don't change the socks very often. Do you gents, let's be honest. There's the times I'd have nagged the lads for not changing their socks. Right? 3 days with the same socks. Who said that? Did it me? God. Yeah. Right, I just want to show you.
I fell ill with malaria whilst on a rural village camp up in northern Ghana. Whilst coming back from the rural village placement where I was teaching some local students, I noticed that I was quite dehydrated, I had stomach problems, and whilst I thought this was just tiredness and dehydration, I was advised to go to hospital to get checked out. Whilst I was in a taxi to the hospital, my situation deteriorated quite rapidly. I started having triple vision, going in and out of consciousness, and when I arrived at the hospital I was treated immediately for malaria. They found out I had malaria falciparum, which is one of the most severe types of malaria, and I was treated with antimalarials and morphine to stem the pain. When I went to my GP, he told me about 3 different sorts of antimalarial tablets. The first was Malarin, which was the most expensive type. The second was doxycycline, which was the one I took. However, doxycycline does give you slight reactions to the sun, and it can make your skin sensitive. And the third one was Lariam. And the downside with Lariam is that it can give you some sort of nightmares and interfere with your sleep patterns. I wish someone had actually told me that not all antimalarials are 100% effective. In fact, none of them are 100% effective. I also took with me an antimalarial net, which can be hung from the rafters using tape or blue tack. I wish that I'd been told to hang the mosquito net away from my body, because numerous nights my mosquito net fell down or was actually on top of my body. I received quite a lot of bites on those nights. Applying DEET every night to sensitive areas such as the face is equally important because this can ward off mosquitoes. I actually didn't apply it to my face very often because it's quite acidic and can often sting. However, I do think it's worth the risk. I wish someone had told me about the symptoms. As your health can deteriorate quite rapidly, it's important that you realise what the symptoms are of malaria so that you can get to the hospital quickly if needs be.
Okay, and that is. Anybody got any questions about malaria? Yeah.
LEDs and stuff. Do you think it would be cheaper to treat it or prevent it?
As a biologist, treating it. Why do I say don't prevent it? In order to prevent it, you're on about getting rid of the parasites. The easiest way to get rid of the parasite is to get rid of the actual vector, and that's the mosquito. However, what would be the effect of removing the mosquito from the food chain within Africa? It would need far more work. They're looking at, they're toyed with the idea of genetically modifying mosquito so that the female, or rather the males, are infertile. So that as they introduce those, there would be less offspring. However, nature is very good at finding a way around that. So when we look at the Anopheles mosquito, would it then go onto something else? And yes, it costs a lot in terms of curing it. Yes, that's a lot. But the other way that we can prevent it is simple things like mosquito nets and education. If we're telling people about it and we stop having silly, I say silly people like Cheryl Cole, it was quite effective, the fact that she did come down with it, because it made people sit up and go, she was only there for 2 days and she got it. Oh my word. So her misfortune was very good because it made it aware that it's not, it will catch you. Any other questions?
Wouldn't the mosquito develop like genetic resistance to antimalarial?
They have done. They have done. And this is the problem. It's appeared in Cambodia, I think it is, the latest strain of mosquitoes that's resistant to the antimalarial. And we are worried in case those mosquitoes move into Africa, because that's where the highest incidence of death is. If it does, then it's back to the drawing board. But the rate of evolution in terms of the parasite is far faster than it takes to get a new drug to market, and that's the problem, and that's this way, and the WHO is getting involved a lot. But yeah, if you look up about the new resistance, I think it's April 2013, the WHO released a paper about their concerns about this. Somebody asked the question.
Can malaria be transferred to livestock?
Yes. But it doesn't appear to be having a serious effect on the cattle. You do see mosquitoes there. Are they getting the full-blown malaria? No. But remember, at the end of the day, all the parasite is wanting to do is reproduce. And it's using your liver cells and blood cells to do that. And there's a lot more of a cow, right? And that's yes, it would probably cause a bit of damage to them, but it doesn't suffer the problems that we have. Any more questions? Well, thank you very much. Right.